Preeclampias, it's Vanessa and welcome back to the channel, and it feels good to be back. I took a little bit of a break, as you can see, gave birth to sweet Richelle. Yeah, it's been very tough to film videos. I've been filming some things, but to take the time to edit, it's really hard. You get like 10 minutes to yourself because it's like, oh, I have to do stuff around the house because she's napping and she's like content. I call her my Velcro baby because if I'm too far away, she'll cry. So right now she's calm, so that's why I'm like, okay, I need to focus and film this right now, but I'm also making lunch for myself at the same time, so it's crazy, but I'm excited because today we are going to talk about her birth story and giving birth. And yeah, I'm really excited to talk about it because this is actually awareness about preeclampsia. So, because that's what I went through. So if it's your first time here, welcome. I do post every single Friday. I'm planning to do that now consistently now that she's a little bit older and I got the rhythm of things. But yeah, if you like these types of videos, hit that like button for the YouTube algorithm, as well as if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button down below, as now I'm going to start posting every single Friday again, so let's get into it. Sorry, I'm not all done up. I'm like in my PJ shirt, but this is like when I have time to talk, so here we go. Essentially what happened was she was born about like a week or two early. So a week prior going to the hospital, I do my usual OB checkup. You start going like every week leading up to the 40-week mark. So she saw my blood pressure was high, and then after 10 minutes it went down a bit. It was still high, but it went down. So she was like, okay, you know what, we'll come back next week, like early next week. So I went and my blood pressure was high, and basically it was decided that I was going to be induced. But that day when I went in, she's like, you got to go to the hospital now. And I'm like, now? And she's like, now. So I'm like, oh, okay. Luckily I did pack my hospital bag literally the week before. See, this is why you should pack your hospital bag early, because you don't know what's going to happen. So the hospital was literally 2 minutes away from where my OB was, and she's like, go there now type thing. I didn't. I went home because I kind of just left, and the house was kind of in shambles. Like, I left Hachi inside. Like, I was just like, I have to get my bag. Like, I was just like, no. We need to get situated. I want Mitch to take me there. I don't want two separate cars. I don't want that nonsense. So I went home, had my hospital bag ready, just did a final, like, what else do I need? We dealt with Hachi because our neighbors luckily watched him. Mitch came home, we grabbed food, but we got there in like 30-ish minutes. So anyways, what ended up happening, we got to the hospital, I got checked in, waiting for the doctor for about 45 minutes. Okay, the one thing I do recommend is, unless like you don't really care about like needles and stuff, I did not like that a student was doing my blood work. You can tell when it's a student because they'll tap and they'll be like, I'm looking for a good vein. I need to find a good vein. I need to ask my colleague if this is a good vein. I'm like, so anyway, because it was blood, and so she did it, and she was like, oh, never mind, I found one, it's fine. She did it, and then she was like, oh shoot, I didn't do it properly. I need to do it again. And I'm like, oh my god. So it was actually on my birth plan, no students, but anyway, like that's when I got first checked in, so I was kind of like, whatever. Finally see the doctor, and then they checked my blood pressure, saw it was high, and they're like, okay, yeah, we're gonna get you induced, whatever. So they bring me into the room, and I'm like, oh my god. So when they bring you into the room, the birthing room, and you just see the little bassinet thing, but it's like plastic, where the baby's gonna be, I'm just like, oh my god. And it really hit me that she was coming that day. So it was like December 11th. And guys, I thought it was gonna be December 12th. In my gut, that's what I thought it was gonna be, which actually would have been the case if I did a regular labor, maybe, depending how long my contractions were gonna be and all that kind of stuff. But I really thought it was going to be December 12th, which was actually the day Mitch and I became an official couple. It's okay. December 11th's good. It's close enough. So, mama instinct. I knew she was coming around December 12th. So anyways, I checked my blood pressure again and saw that it was really high. I think it was like 160 or something. And a healthy one is 120, right? So they were like, okay. They're just worried if they induce me, how much higher my blood pressure would be and how long I would be in labor for, that kind of thing. So they ended up just deciding to do a C-section. And Mitch thought I was going to be a C-section, just he had a feeling. So they start kind of like talking that they were going to do it. But when they said C-section, all of a sudden a swarm of nurses came in, and it was like 6 of them, okay? And there was like lights on the ceiling. They turned on the lights. I was lying down. They were doing the IV. And again, at first, one of the nurses was like, oh, is it okay that she does it? Which was the same nurse that did my blood work and messed it up. And I was like, no, sorry, I'm not good with needles. I just want someone that can do it properly. The supervisor of this nurse did it, and she also did it wrong. So they had to do it again. I hate it when they don't do it properly. I know it's like not necessarily like their fault, like things happen, but it's like, it's just nice when it goes smooth. But anyways, so these nurses all came in and we're all talking to me. So I was kind of freaking out because I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. And obviously I heard like the doctor saying like, we need to get the baby out now type thing. That's what they were saying to each other. So I was like, oh, they're like, baby's okay, mom isn't. And I'm like, oh my God, like, what do I do now? So they have to put a catheter in, which is like the tube to catch your pee. But I was like freaking out because like there's all these things going on at the same time. They're all talking to me. But eventually everything was set up for me and they rolled me into the operating room. The guy was there for the epidural. Now, I found out recently that an epidural is mandatory for a C-section. Well, I guess it makes sense, but I thought it was just like a numbing. I don't know. I thought it was something different. I didn't think it was an epidural, but it was. Guys, the epidural, coming from someone that is petrified of needles, the epidural is not bad at all. The IV was the most painful. Getting the IV was the worst thing. The epidural was perfect. It did its thing. I literally felt like maybe like they pinched me, like just went like, and that was it. Like there was no pain. Like this, the IV was painful, especially because they had to redo it again. I'm like, oh my God. I'm waiting for Mitch, by the way. So they just wheeled me in and were always getting me set up. They put your arms like this. They bound your arms because apparently you start shaking, which I did because it's cold or whatever. You have a sheet so you don't see them operating on you, which is nice. So I'm waiting for Mitch, and the one thing that happens, you feel nauseous. Like you feel like you're gonna throw up, but the anesthesiologist was there. So he like, I think he like just blew some like air. It looked like those dentist things that suck the air over spit or whatever. That's what it looked like. So he was just dealing with that for me. So that took away the nausea sensation. I freaked out because I was like, oh my God, did it already kick in? Because I was still able to move my feet. I told him, I'm like, I don't think it's working yet. He's like, oh, can you move your legs? I was like, yeah, I can. And he's like, oh, well, don't worry, you'll be fine. I'm like, oh my God. Like, it felt like 5 minutes. It was probably like 2 minutes later. They were like, okay, Vanessa, can you feel this? And I felt like someone touching my stomach. And I was like, oh, yeah, I can feel it. And they're like, do you feel pain? And I'm like, pain? And they're like, okay, you're fine. Because for a C-section, you feel them touching, but you don't feel pain. It's the most weirdest feeling, but it's really cool at the same time. Basically, it felt like someone's washing dishes in your stomach. That's what it feels like. Like someone, they're just like moving stuff around in there, but it's not painful. So you're like this. You're like this lying down. And then I heard the doctor say, where's the husband? Where's the dad? And they're like, oh, he's in the room. Because they didn't like escort him in. So poor Mitch, I'm already cut open, by the way. He like was like just not looking. He just went straight to me and like went by my head like, hello, are you okay? Like, I'm like, poor guy. Then what ended up happening, they took her out and I felt like my stomach deflate. I'm like, oh, I think they took her out. Mitch apparently said like you could see his head, the doctor's head over the screen. So he's like, I think he was like literally on top of you, like trying to pulling Richelle out. So anyway, they end up like being like, oh, she's out. And I hear like a little cry. They show her and she's literally like this with the long limbs. And then they're like, oh, there she is. And she's like, meh. Like didn't even cry. She was such a calm baby. Because I know sometimes there's concern that the baby doesn't cry. She was awake, but she just wasn't crying. She's just like, meh. Oh, like one little cry and that was it. And then they were like, oh, take a picture, Dad, take a picture. And he's like, oh, because he didn't bring his phone because, you know, an operating room, like why? Like usually you don't bring stuff with you. And so he ran, got his phone, came back, whatever. Took a picture, that was it. So the C-section, it should have brought down my blood pressure significantly, like 5 to 10 minutes after. So stitched me up, whatever. I was doing golden hour with her, you know, skin to skin. They waited about an hour or two. My blood pressure actually went more up. So I think it was like 190, almost 200 at the time. And what happens is your organs could shut down and you could, you know, go into a seizure, and I would have to be assisted like breathing, that kind of thing. I had no symptoms. So I personally think it was like my mom, oh my God, it was my mom being like my guardian angel, making sure like I'm okay for Richelle. Like that was literally what I thought happened, because with that blood pressure, I should have you know, had something happen, but nothing luckily didn't happen to me. And I believe, honestly, it was just my mom protecting me. So thank you, Mom, for doing that. Because, yeah, Mitch honestly thought he was going to be a widow because of how high my blood pressure was. It was ridiculous. So the doctor was even worried. He called like ICU, just like, oh my God, they called cardiologist, and they were going to bring me down to ICU to monitor me. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, oh, and they're going to put different IVs, because he was like, I would keep you here, but we don't have the tools that the ICU would have that would help you bring your blood pressure down. I'm like, okay. I'm like, okay, so we're all going to go downstairs. And he's like, oh no, only you are going to go downstairs. And I'm like, oh. So literally I was only with my daughter for like an hour or two, or maybe it was even less. Mitch said it was like 15 minutes. Yeah, they were like, she's going to stay up here, which makes sense because I would be with other patients that might be sick, and I don't want her around that. So it made sense, but it was really hard to leave her. But honestly, I was in a state of shock that I didn't like cry over it. But thinking about it now, I'm like, oh my God, like, you know, you want to just be like, oh, she's here, and just hold her. And, you know, I couldn't do that. So that was a shame to do. But the nice thing was they put me in like a private room downstairs in ICU. I still had the catheter, so I was in bed the whole time. They put a bunch of different IVs, and it was like stabilizing. It was going down, but it was still high. So luckily I was only there for a day, and then I finally was brought up to postpartum, whatever. So we were reunited again, which was really nice. I still had this damn catheter in. The catheter, honestly, it was the most uncomfortable thing, because if you turn, you feel the thing. Ugh, I hated it. So when they finally took it out, it was so good. It felt so nice for it to be taken out. It's not bad being taken out. I think it's worse being put in, honestly. And guys, when you get a catheter out, your sensation to pee, it doesn't come quickly. So you have to time yourself to go pee, or else you won't notice that you have to pee. It's so wild. That sensation took about like almost 2-3 weeks for it to start to come back, and fully come back like a month or so after the whole birth, which is wild. Because my preeclampsia was so high, they were giving me like aspirin, they were giving me all these like different types of medication like 3 or 4 times a day. And apparently it's supposed to like give you a headache, it's supposed to like do all these symptoms. I had no symptoms whatsoever. They were like, oh, you don't feel dizzy, you don't have no. They're like, oh, okay. It was so strange. It was so wild. Again, I think it was just my mom watching over me and protecting me. So throughout the whole week of being there, they kept keeping me because my blood pressure was going down, but it wasn't going down enough. And the last thing that they wanted was to send me home and say my blood pressure shot up again, and then I would have to go through a merge. So, and plus with the baby and stuff, they suggested it was just better for me to stay, which was fine. But I felt so bad for Hachi. Like, I was like, oh, 2 days, we'll be back. And it turned out to be like almost like 10 days we were in the hospital. I felt so bad. Mitch did go home once in a while though, to like check on him and that kind of thing. But I felt horrible. Like, I felt bad for leaving him alone, because, you know, I wanted like the 2-3 days and then coming home, seeing Hachi, seeing the like, it was just so hard. Mentally and physically too, because obviously I couldn't really walk. Like, it was sore. It was sore for a good 2-3 weeks, especially trying to get up. Like, it felt like it was like stretching and pulling. But I don't think I even showered until like the last 2 days or whatever I was there, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna go home, I can shower at home. And the water's like, water pressure there isn't as good as at home, obviously, and even like the temperature, I was just like, this is not the vibe. Eventually, what ended up happening the very last day, they finally sent me home, because there would be some times they would check and my blood pressure was fine and they're like, yay, but then it would go back up. They sent me home and I was on like, how many pills a day? It was like 11 pills, and even the pharmacist was like, holy cow, that's a lot. The doctor even told me like, hey, like, this is a lot. This is like a tranquilizer, like this would knock a horse out. Like, and I had no symptoms. They also sent me to a specialist for blood pressure. I forgot what they're called. Now my blood pressure is back to normal. It's normalized. I'm not taking any more pills, thank God. Because like I was on so many, and it was just wild. But I do have a heart monitor now to check just in case. But yeah, that was like the birth story, like the little summary of it. It was wild, but I'm really thankful for the doctors there for watching over me. I'm really thankful for Mitch, because honestly, it was so traumatic. Not traumatic, but like there was so much going on that I couldn't process things. So I'm really thankful for Mitch for being so supportive, taking care of Richelle especially. While we were in the hospital, he really stepped up. So it's so good when you have a partner that's so supportive. I'm thankful for like my family and friends too. Like one of our friends, Sam, she brought food to us, which was so sweet. People like came to visit as well. Like we didn't want too many people to visit just because, you know, like it was flu season, cold season. But yeah, like we had very few people visit. But yeah, like people's like sending like gift cards for food and that kind of stuff, because yeah, it was just really sweet. And it's so nice when you have a really good support system. As you can see, I'm fine, thankfully. But yeah, the preeclampsia thing, I didn't think that was a thing, like that would happen to me, but yeah, it's wild. So now because we do want 2 children, the next time I'm pregnant, that what they would probably do is monitor me, and it would be a scheduled C-section. Well, depending when I would think, but it would most likely be a scheduled C-section just because of like, I'm high risk now because of that, what happened. But yeah, wild, but so thankful that Richelle's here. She was perfect. There was no concerns about her. There was obviously concerns with the baby, but nothing like crazy. So I'm so thankful that she's here and healthy, and yeah, she's such a blessing to have here. I'm excited to share this new milestone with you guys, being a mommy. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any questions about the birth, please comment them down below and I'll answer them. I just did like a quick summary of it. Thanks you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!